medical marijuana dispensary, where the supervisors moved forward with that. And it's not that I'm opposed to medical marijuana, but the overwhelming information that they received from their paid staff, their law enforcement staff, was that it was a health and safety issue. The board moved forward with it. I was in agreement with the board. Our current supervisor was not. That was one of them. Another one, he wanted to, there was a proposal to mandate landlords to take Section 8 housing. And our supervisor promoted that. It did not move forward, and I would not have mandated that on landlords, to mandate them to take Section 8 housing. That's another one. The water conservation ordinance that was passed after the urgency ordinances, I think that has been detrimental and will continue to be on people's large pieces of property, where they'll have to find trade-offs, and I think it's going to have a negative effect on that. So I would not have supported the emergency water ordinance. I would not have supported the other two issues. Those are three I can think of.
That one was applied to North County, right?
It's applied to the entire county.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one offset. Offset was the word I was looking for, yes. There have been farmers who've had, and I know you probably don't want to get into the arguments on it, but who have been dry farmers, and then they change and want to grow a wet crop, and now they have to broker that from somebody else and buy that water right on the trade-off to enable them to do that. And I think it's unfair to the farmers who have been conserving water all these years, and then all of a sudden now we have layered them with something now that's onerous, and they have to go out and buy water from somebody else. Those are three I can think of.
That was a good question. I had to think about that one for a minute. And I think I agreed with everything you said. And to add a few more, on the North County water situation, I know he was strongly in favor of a water district, and I am strongly opposed to a water district. The reason being that districts, for the most part, have a dismal record in our county. They are not nearly as well regulated as a city or a state or a county is. And so we have story after story after story, and if you stop to think about it for a minute, you'll realize that districts gone bad and people's money being squandered. And so I absolutely could not support another district being developed that would put people at risk. I think that the water should be managed by the county, and it has been for many years now. And that's part of the whole big picture of how our water should be managed. I'm sorry?
How is it being managed by the county?
It's being managed by the Flood Control District.
Oh.
Yeah. The other thing is that our current supervisor has, as far as I'm aware, voted for almost every housing development that's come his way. And they have a way of deciding how much water is, and I call it government math. So what they say is, okay, if this place needs let's say one unit of water, then we've got 1 unit of water. So then the next place comes along, if it needs 1 unit of water, they say, oh, we've got 1 unit of water. But 1 and 1 is 2, right? But they just say 1 times 1 is 1. And then the next one comes along, oh, we've got 1 unit of water. Well, that's actually 3 units of water they need, but they've got 1, so that's okay. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. And so that's why we don't have any water for ourselves now, because they do government math on water. And he's very good at government math. Diablo also, I'm not opposed to looking at that as an option. I think, as I said earlier, I think it's a great idea, but I think it should have been thrown into the mix, and I think we should have looked at everything. So there's another 3.
Yes, my name is Jim, and I'm appreciative of the opportunity to hear your views. What I would like to ask you is, I'm going to vote in this election. I will not vote for the incumbent supervisor. I will be voting for one of you. Could you help me make up my mind?
Well, there you go. Well, I would suggest that I, having been a mayor, I've had a little bit broader experience, because we deal at a little bit more regional level, a little bit higher state level. We work on the mayor's selection committee, so we advise on someone for the Coastal Commission. And we work with the other mayors in the county, so we have a little bit broader countywide experience as mayor than you do as a council member, or even as the mayor pro tem or vice mayor. The other thing the other piece that I've got is 10 years of experience working with the Coastal Commission, because in Grover Beach we had our hotel and conference center that we've been working on for 40 years. And so with 4 years on the Planning Commission, we worked with the Coastal Commission. And my next 4 years as a council member, I worked with the Coastal Commission. And then the 2 years as mayor, it actually was approved while I was mayor. It was appealed while I was the mayor. We won the appeal while I was the mayor. And that's not still relevant out here, except that our beach communities really drive our economy in the whole county, but certainly drive our economies down here at Pismo Beach, Grover Beach, and Avila Beach. And so I've definitely got that clear understanding of that, along with the piece of having worked with the whole county and had meetings up in San Luis Obispo. We're always up in San Luis Obispo because it's the hub of the county. And so I've got all of those pieces.
Thank you, Jim, for the question, and I'm most excited that you're not voting for the incumbent. I think that's a wise choice, and you have 2 other choices, so you do have choices. Why you should vote for me? There's lots of reasons. I think I have been here, my longevity and my commitment to this community is longer than either of my opponents. I think that's unquestionable. I'm currently the vice mayor. This is my 2nd year in my 6-year tenure as vice mayor. Debbie's correct, there are things the mayor does that council members don't do, and I'm afforded that as a vice mayor, especially with ours, who has been very generous about giving me many of her responsibilities to distract me from the campaign trail, probably, because she supports our incumbent. So there has been some of that, and we've battled back and forth, but I enjoy being in this position. Just to kind of give you a little perspective, out of the 7 cities in the county, San Luis Obispo is the only charter city. And what that means, the others are incorporated, but they are general law cities. We're considered a charter. We have our own constitution, if you will. We have municipal codes. We decide on our own. We don't default to the state like the general law cities do. So we have a higher level of governance at ours. Just to give you an idea of dollar-wise too, I'm getting close as a representative in the city of San Luis, closer to the budget than any other city in the county. Our 2016-17 budget, for example, is $211 million. The county's is $565 million. The cities of Grover Beach, for example, $24 million. So having served in Grover Beach with a $24 million budget and me serving in San Luis with a $200 million budget is quite a difference. You're appropriating a lot more money. The revenues are pretty high. So having served at that higher level, serving right now half the people in the district, about 28,000 people in the city of San Luis are in District 3. So I'm already serving them. I think I have a pretty good reputation with them, and we'll know on June 7th. So for me to expand that 28,000 out to another 28,000 throughout the district, I think I'm ready to go and do that, and I hope I would have your vote, Jeff.
I'm going to give everyone one chance.
Hi, I'm Sharon. I would just like to know, what are your proudest accomplishments? It's one thing to sit on these boards. Some people sit on these boards and never get anything done and never move anything forward. What have you done where you really instigated something and you really achieved something for the people you were representing, rather than going to the meetings?
I think, okay, sorry, you go first.
I don't know if I am.
Okay, go ahead.
We've had some large projects that I participate in. Our overpass right at the end of San Luis. We have a $65 million wastewater treatment upgrade. Those are things where we do it locally. We also have to deal with most large projects. You have to deal with the state agency, so it's hard to cut that out. And these are decisions. The overpass was a $32 million project that I was able to make those decisions on for many years. The $65 million wastewater treatment plant, those are decisions we have to make every year while I've served on council. And appropriating funds to different parts of it, you know, the RFP process and then the environmental process and then deciding on contractors. And do you use local contractors, do you out of state, do you use prevailing wage? As a charter city, we're not mandated to use prevailing wage, and those kinds of decisions we make locally. And so those, I'm very proud of those two large accomplishments. One small accomplishment I like, and it served a quality of life issue, is we have a $2 million skate park that came to us 2011 or 12. We sent them out to raise their money. They weren't able to do all of it, and I was fortunate enough to appropriate the remainder of it with my colleagues to make that happen. It was completed, and it's a tremendous quality of life issue for our younger people. So those are just a few.
Well, I managed to keep my real estate business going when most people's real estate income dropped to 25% of what it normally was during the toughest economy that any of us can remember. And at the same time was the mayor of the poorest city in the county, and with a quarter of the income per capita of what Pismo Beach has. I managed to get a extensive roads plan to repair Grover Beach's roads. Only time it ever happened. Not only did we get the plan done, but I got a bond passed to do it in the poorest city in the county. I managed to get a hotel that had been on the books for 40 years passed through the Coastal Commission and passed an appeal to the Coastal Commission. Managed to get the first of 3 contracts for fiber optic to tie into Pacific Crossing, which is the fastest and broadest fiber optic anywhere in the world. Managed to get the first of 3 contracts to extend that to the whole city, where the industrial and commercial areas of Grover Beach, and then further afield for the whole county. And also worked with our sanitation district to save them over $1 million a year by reorganizing them.
My name's Leanne. It's so nice to see both of you here this evening. So my question is this. Our county obviously needs more affordable housing, and we obviously need job development. Can you talk a little bit about how you will assist in the development of both, but also ensure that the development is sane?
About 16 people to a house.
You know, one of the most important things we can do is talk with our developers. Developers are very, very creative because they have to be to survive, and they've always got their money on the line. And we can talk with them and work with them and explain what our issues are and find out what their issues are. We can also, as I said earlier, do infrastructure up front, water and roads. That would be a big help to them, and it would be a big help to the rest of the community too. And so I lost track of your question a little bit there. It's interesting, the question about jobs. What first came to my mind is we have about 4.5% unemployment. We have very low unemployment. Part of the problem is that their housing is so expensive, and a lot of our employment is in the lower paid jobs. We've got that disparity that we see across America. And so we do really need to continue to develop our economic vitality. Having always owned my own businesses and launched several businesses of my own, I have a passion for that, and I'm excited about that, and I really enjoy working with businesses, because entrepreneurs who can start successful businesses are really good problem solvers. And so I see us working with them, not for big campaign donations, but because they can help us solve problems, and we should all be working together to solve those problems.
And I think I mentioned earlier that housing and jobs, they just go hand in hand, because you can't bring the jobs in without the housing. Earlier this year, I proposed to my colleagues, and it was something they, I think, kind of shocked them a little bit. I said, how about if we incentivize our builders to build the inventory, the type of inventory we want? Smaller units, substandard lot sizes, But only those units do we incentivize, and we incentivize it by, one, standardizing the permitting process so we can streamline it. And we drop the fees some, and we drop the impact, because we always have impact fees for transportation and sewer and water. But if we really are serious about getting them to build the kind of housing we need, we have to incentivize them. Otherwise, they're gonna keep building the single-family homes for $600,000 or $700,000. So I think we have that opportunity. It was met with opposition from all four of my colleagues. I don't think they're ready for it yet, and I even sold it to them on, it's an investment in our community. It's us sacrificing some of that money up front to receive it in the end when we keep people in our community and we get them off the freeways and we get them spending money locally. But not, well, I would say almost exclusively, none of my colleagues have a business background like I do, and so they, in that type of setting, you're always investing money up front, expecting a return on the end. And so I tried to apply that way of thinking to it and was met with resistance. But I still think that's the answer. We have to tell our builders what kind of housing do we want, and then put the carrot out there and say, build it for us. Because the ones I talk to on a regular basis, they're willing to build what we want, but we have not given them that incentive yet, and I think we can do it.
All right, we're going to get down to the last two questions as we draw near, because I'm sure our panelists are getting tired of talking to us, or maybe not. But anyway, here we go.
Hi, I'm Natalie Beller, and I live right down on Old Oak Park Road. And Phillips 66 and Freeport Macron teamed up to build a oil pipeline down that road. I don't have a problem with business, and I'm definitely supportive of financial stability for everyone. But I do have a problem when they didn't include the residents in this decision. And I have a huge concern for my health and my safety and that of my family, because our drinking well is 50 feet from this pipeline. And there's nobody monitoring that pipeline other than Phillips 66 and Freeport Macron. The technology that is in place to monitor it fails. People fail to read the reports correctly. If there is a leak, there's nothing to protect my drinking water from all the thinners that they put in to the oil to get it to flow, because that oil is very hard. And I've talked to the county, I've talked to our supervisor, I've talked to other supervisors, I've gone to the planning commission hearings, every single one. I've talked to public health, and nobody has given me any answers. In fact, every single one of them said they're not worried. They don't think that my health and my safety and that of my child, my husband, my neighbors, is that important. What are you going to do about it? Sorry that I'm a little bit upset. It just touched a really sensitive spot. Because as you said, Debbie, health and safety is the most important. That trumps making more money. And they could have worked with us. They could have made something work out, and they didn't, for a variety of reasons. So what are you guys going to do to protect us?
Thank you for bringing that up. I'll be honest, I don't know what we can do at this point. I'm not in that position to be inside on that information. So let me back up a little bit and maybe tell you what I would have done. I think first of all of you along this path of this pipeline should have been notified long before the decision was made. You should have been, if you had a supervisor who was active in your community, you would have known about it. I heard from some of you that you weren't even notified that the piping was going in until they were actually tearing up your roads. I think that's horrific that happened. Public outreach on these kinds of things are critical. And that's something your supervisor should be doing from day one, the minute that application comes in, or that you sense that's coming. And that's why those monthly meetings are so critical, because as your supervisor hears it, they bring it to you, and all of you come out and say, this is not going to work for us, and then they take that back. I don't know what we can do at this point, and I'm sorry I'm naive on that, but I would have approached this to this point in a different manner, that you would have had a say-so before that decision was made.
The supervisors meet every week to go over the agendas. They know what's happening with the agenda, and it actually, every single agenda says which areas it affects. So they know when this kind of stuff's coming around, and they should be letting you know. They should be jumping up and down and hollering, and I certainly would be. And I know a lot about this kind of thing because I'm a right-of-way agent. I do specialized real estate on exactly that kind of thing, on public works that go through the right-of-way that affect people. And we actually go out and work with the people who are being affected, and we put in traffic plans, and we help with public meetings, and we make sure that government is actually serving the people rather than serving itself. And so I certainly would be doing that, and I'm agreeing with everything that Dan is saying. And what needs to happen there is that there needs to be monitoring by an independent third party, not by the county, and certainly not by the oil companies. It needs to be an independent third party monitoring to make sure it's okay. And I don't think they should be monitoring Sentry wells. They should be monitoring your wells, because you're the ones who are drinking the water. And I think there's probably more. And do you know what's most powerful is for you to jump up and down and holler until you get what you want. And you might want to consider, and I'm not going to say a name because I don't think it's fair, but I know that there's someone here who's had severe problems historically, and we've had a big conversation about getting what's called a phase 1 study, which I've suggested that this individual go to the oil company because they are required to do a phase 1 study to prove that her land is no longer contaminated. And if that phase 1 study, and I know because I do these, if that phase 1 study shows that there's still contamination, or there may be contamination, and this goes as far as just gases in the soil, then they have to do a phase 2 study. And if it shows that there's contamination, then the oil company forever has to clean it up. And so I suggest that you start with that, because it's not just the oil pipeline that's an issue, but it's the whole of the expansion of the oil company, and whether or not the oil moves back and forth between aquifers. And we don't have answers, but we know it does, because the old timers here have seen it happen, and we know it happens down by Phillips, and we know it happens up here. So you all need to jump up and down and holler till you get what you want, and we'll work with you to see what we can do.
Our time has run out. I want to say thank you. You guys are very informed. I'm really pleased that you're here to answer the questions. It's going to be a difficult decision between you two because you're both really working for the people, and that's quite obvious. The only thing I can say while you're thinking about that and trying to decide who to vote for, you can vote for me. I want to say thank you for coming to my home. And feel free to talk with them if you like, because I'm sure they'd be happy to answer questions privately for a while. For myself, if you talk to me too much, I disappear. So anyway, thanks again. And there are still snacks in there, and it's nice to see everyone involved in our neighborhood and making things happen in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clive.